so much of recruiting is just optics. You think you're recruiting well, you think you have momentum, or you don't. Louisville clearly doesn't have it right now, even with that Karter Knox visit, because honestly, I think a lot of people aren't taking the Karter Knox visit very seriously. And if anyone's been following the Karter Knox recruitment or the Knox family, obviously he's a younger brother of Kevin Knox, the one and done star at Kentucky. He helped lead them to an SEC tournament title 6 or 7 years ago. There's actually a middle Knox brother, Kobe, who plays at South Florida right now, another one of the finalists for Karter Knox. But the family itself is very tight to Kenny Payne. They're family friends. So I think a lot of people just kind of looked at that official visit the other weekend as almost like a favor to KP. The seat's red hot, scalding after that Arkansas State game. Let's get something to kind of cool things off, get the administration or the powers that be to maybe not make a snap judgment and fire him. And also, I asked Karter Knox Friday night, in Atlanta after an overtime elite game, hey, would you be interested in Louisville if Kenny Payne wasn't the head coach? And he said no comment. And that kind of maybe tells you all you need to know about that situation. And even if you were to sign at Louisville, I mentioned it with Dennis Evans, former Minnesota signee, released from his NLI, goes to Louisville. Sky Clark, a Louisville player right now, signed with Kentucky. Obviously, I got out of that deal to go to Illinois before he went to Louisville. So that's all to say, even a commitment and even actually signing the national letter of intent certainly doesn't mean what it once used to in college basketball recruiting. So when you look at the totality of everything, not to mention the transfers that came in, the aforementioned Sky Clark, Trey White, who's been ball dominant, shall we say, coming in from Southern California. Danilo Jovanovic has not been a factor. Karan Davis is off the team. That's the only thing we can say with certainty.
Yeah.
Just super disappointing across the board, not only going back to 2022 and what all the buzz was and what people thought KP was going to bring to Louisville from a talent influx and recruiting standpoint, but also the player development, once these guys have gotten on campus. I mean, for as good as Brandon Huntley Hatfield has been, he was at Tennessee before this. He was supposed to be a good player. I mean, I think at this point, and correct me if you have, differing opinions, I think Ty-Laur Johnson is really the only player development success that Kenny Payne and his staff can point to. And it's obviously fallen well short of any expectation or what the standard should be at a program like Louisville.
I think you can point to BHH in the last month or so, because yes, he had kind of the same issues at Tennessee that he had for a long time at Louisville, to where, he wasn't giving consistent effort. He was trying to, shoot the three ball as a legit big man, when he clearly was not a great 3-point shooter. Openly said he wanted to handle the ball and do stuff like that. And that's just not who he is. I think Kenny's finally gotten him. It's taken a lot longer than I think people expected. I think that would probably be the biggest knock on that. And they didn't really have the time for it to take as long as it's taken for Brandon. But Kenny's gotten him to embrace being a traditional big man who, is really good on the low block, is aggressive rebounding the ball, and does a lot of the dirty things, and has started to play more consistent effort. I mean, that's been the biggest issue with him. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it had been. So I guess you could give Kenny some credit for Brandon, but even going back to last year, like Sidney Curry and Roosevelt Wheeler, everyone thought that they were going to take these big strides, and now neither one of them are with the program or in high major college basketball. Emmanuel Okorafor, he looks borderline unplayable a lot of the time right now, and it's his second year in the program now, and you really haven't seen. Trey White, they've tried to turn into a spot-up shooter, which that's just clearly not what he is. He's at his best getting to the bucket and pulling up for mid-range jumpers. Sky Clark, I think, needs to play off the ball more in favor of Ty-Laur Johnson at the point, and they did start Ty-Laur in the Pepperdine game, so maybe they're starting to shift to that, but Mike James is a guy that, has had his moments, but we haven't seen it consistently enough. But I want to, before we get back to Karter Knox, just talking about it, I want to ask you this. Where do you think Louisville's class would have been rated if you take Trenton Flowers out? Because obviously he didn't play a minute for the team. He's in Australia. He doesn't really count at this point, to where you say top 10 class, you're including him. Where do you think Louisville's class would be without him, as far as the rankings go?
Yeah, so you're going from a top 10 class with Trenton Flowers to like a top 20 class. And again, that's certainly nothing to write home about when you're talking about what was across the board a down year for recruiting. And just, to, I guess, give the backstory. And in recruiting circles, 2024 is seen as a really good year, generational year. Cooper Flagg going to Duke.
You mean 2025?
No, 20.
Oh, yeah. It's Flagg reclassified to 24. Yeah.
25 to 24.
Yeah, that's right.
generationally good class because you have a player at the top who many can believe will be the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft, have an impact at that level as a starter right away, teams tanking for him, all that stuff. 25 is also viewed as a generational class because you have AJ DeBansa, who was the top player in 26, moved to 25 after Cooper Flagg moved from 25 to 24. Even the 26 class, the #1 ranked player in the 2026 class, and admittedly, we are talking about high school sophomores here, so a bunch changes, is Tyron Stokes, who's a Louisville native, plays at a prep school in California. Louisville is one of the many schools, including Kentucky, that have offered him a scholarship. So that's to say, there's very good recruiting classes coming down the road to where if you had lost a 5-star as part of a 4 or 5 player class in 24, 25, 26, it may not have as much of an impact because there's solid talent, there's depth across the recruiting ranks.
Yeah, especially when you didn't get DJ Wagner either.
Yeah. And you look at a class like 23, losing Trenton Flowers almost tanks your entire class, especially when he was thought of as the centerpiece, the #1 recruit, the top target. And for him to leave to go play in the NBL in Australia, first off, A, makes your team worse. B, the perception becomes that he didn't believe his best way to become an NBA player to get to the next level was by trusting Kenny Payne and the coaching staff. Now, we don't have to relitigate the whole I want to be a point guard discussion, relitigate the whole role that they wanted him to play in. But to your point, you look at what Louisville's done offensively, especially this season. You can't tell me that Trenton Flowers at point guard, for as bad as that could have been, would be worse than a lot of the Sky Clark minutes or worse than a lot of, when Trey White's dominating the ball. Ty-Laur Johnson has shown some nice flashes. I think he's got 4 or so assists in 6 games this season. So, maybe there's some potential there. But Trenton Flowers was your best player. And a lot of times, like John Calipari will tell you here at Kentucky, you take the best player, then you figure out a way to acclimate him into the system. One of the famous Cal-isms that he's brought over the years. And kind of segueing back into Knox in the 24 class, perception's everything in recruiting. Karter Knox has said and told me, specifically many times on the record, the most important thing in his recruitment is to be a one and done and to go into the NBA. Recruits a lot of times kind of say the same boilerplate quotes when you ask them what's most important to them about a program. They talk about player development, they talk about style of play, relationship with the coaching staffs. But really the thing that's kind of eating and driving all of that is the desire to go to the NBA, to be a lottery pick, to be a first-round draft pick, to be put in the best position to make millions and millions of dollars down the road. And thus far, Louisville has shown, essentially no ability to, A, produce that under Kenny Payne, and B, if you're a recruit looking from the outside in at this program, and I know Kenny Payne a lot of times in pressers talks about perception. Even this morning, he talked about, nobody thinks we have a chance against Kentucky. Well, why would a recruit ever think that going to Louisville currently under this coaching staff and this head coach is going to elevate you to a first-round draft pick, is going to elevate you to be ready for that next level? I mean, you even look at the players that they lost this past offseason. El Ellis goes to Arkansas. Jalen Withers goes to North Carolina. Both have played in every single game for those high major, high-quality teams this season. And even after, the CBS Sports Classic in Atlanta over the weekend, people are talking about how Jalen Withers should have been playing more for North Carolina in a top 10 matchup.
People were saying that? Who was saying that? I saw Kentucky. And I like Jalen Withers. He's a good kid. I mean, he's
in that game too. Not that that's the end-all be-all stat, but the fact that there's even discourse about a player who used to play at Louisville, he should have played more against Kentucky in a CBS Sports Classic game.
But I felt like Kentucky took advantage of him on both ends of the court a lot. Like they put him in a lot of ball screens late in that game, and they really attacked him with their guards. And on the other end, they kind of left him as we dare you to hit open shots to beat us, and he couldn't do it. Like I felt like he was kind of the weak link for North Carolina in that game, to be quite honest. Like I don't want to pile on him because he's done really good things for the Tar Heels this year, and he's been a serviceable, good player that started games for them. But in that game, late when it got into crunch time, it was let's pick on Jalen Withers on the defensive end, and then let's make him beat us on the offensive end. And Carolina couldn't get a stop, and Withers didn't make him pay for it.
Well, sure. So, I mean, Jalen Withers of it aside, the fact is that Louisville has not been able to bring in A, top talent, B, players that have gotten demonstrably better since being there, C, players that have elevated their stock at Louisville to go from either transfers to likely NBA draft picks and go for class as well. You have Karter Knox, who has Louisville in his top 4. It's Louisville the NBA's G League Ignite program, that direct to pro option. Kentucky and South Florida, where one of his older brother plays. You have Bryson Tucker, a small forward who plays at Bishop O'Connell, a high school in Virginia. And then you have Sekou Kone, who's a power forward from Wisconsin. Tucker, solid player, solid 4-star player, small forward, still considering Louisville, although he did recently in November take an official visit to Kansas. Kane is a lot more of a mystery, shall we say, ranked 3 stars by 247 Sports. I don't think any other major recruiting service has him ranked. Louisville's his only Power 5 offer. The rest are like the Loyola Chicago's of the world, the Wisconsin Milwaukee's of the world, Indiana State's of the world. Take an official visit to Louisville in November, but it's really him. It's really Knox. Obviously, they have TJ Robinson, who's their only commit for next year, but he didn't sign during the early signing period, and he's been committed since October 2022. That's a pretty big, big red flashing arrow that he's got some hesitancy, not only about the program and its ability to get him to the next level, but also about if Kenny Payne's going to be the head coach come 2024. So when you look at all of that, especially in what's considered to be a good recruiting year, it doesn't look like that's going to work out well for Louisville in terms of true freshmen coming in with highly touted reputations. And this, assuming Kenny Payne makes it through this year and assuming he would be the coach for 24-25, that's 3 straight recruiting classes, 2022's FBI understood and late in the cycle aside, but that's still 3 recruiting classes where he hasn't delivered and hasn't demonstrably made a majority of his players better since arriving in Louisville.
Yeah, he also, barring something stunning, will not be the head coach for that third class. I mean, and that's kind of where it goes with all of this. Like you said with Karter Knox, like no one's taking the visit seriously. Like it seems like Knox is almost a pawn in just Kenny trying to give them a reason to get the job. It feels like a pity visit. Like, I'll just say it just feels like a pity visit for Karter Knox. And like, I'm not blaming the kid on that. I mean, go take the free visit, have fun, get your free swag, get your, get your food, go out, Louisville's a fun place to go out and have a weekend. I'm sure they showed him a good time. Not too good of a time though with the past.
Words right out of my mind.
Yeah. As I said, I was like, ooh, maybe the wrong school to say that with, but sorry, but I don't blame him for taking the visit. Like you might as well. You got the visits. It's free. Do it. But from Kenny Payne's point of view, why is this happening now? When the pressure,
and I will say, when we asked Karter Knox about the visit, he did insist that this had been scheduled for several months in advance, that he was always planning to visit Louisville along with the rest of his finalists. I think he's targeting a February visit, if I'm not mistaken, for Kentucky. He visited South Florida earlier this season. But yeah, I mean, Karter Knox and the Knox family can say that this was scheduled in advance, that they were always going to come. But for the news to break a day after the Arkansas State game, right? Look great for the news to break right as we're getting all the reports and rumors swirling about Kenny Payne being ousted before that Pepperdine game, for it to come at a time now when attendance is at an all-time program low and they're scanning less than 5,000 tickets for Louisville games. It's just one of those things where it doesn't quite add up, and you can't help but think that it's almost like a favor done to Kenny Payne from a family that's been loyal to him, and the Knox family is very loyal, to throw him this bone, if you will, and say, hey, wait, let's stop this process of initiating a firing or a termination or a separation because we have a 5-star on campus. And now when you have Karter Knox, not coming out and saying, I'm still going to consider Louisville, even if KP is not the head coach, you're right. Pawn is almost the word that comes to mind, or, something, oh, you can't fire him because this may not happen. And so, yeah, it's a really difficult situation to kind of gauge because of all these factors.
I give credit to the majority of Louisville fans on this one because they've kind of called the bluff on it, if that makes sense. Yeah, like it feels like the first time that I've seen. I'll put it this way: if that visit happened in October, let's say they choose middle of October, the weekend that Louisville football hosted Notre Dame, sellout crowd, great atmosphere, biggest one in Jeff Brom's first year.
When you want recruits to be visiting.
Right. Well, which I get. I understand you wanting them to visit for basketball games. I do understand that. But if you would have done that in October before everything that's happened already this season, people would have gotten excited. They would have not fully bought back in, but there would have been the segment of people that would have said, here's tangible evidence for why Kenny Payne will work long term. If you do that in mid-October.
It also probably helped he wouldn't have lost to a division school too at that time then as well.
Yeah, yeah.
He left it, wouldn't have happened. And I do want to say, you mentioned the ongoing recruiting comment earlier and how that's kind of become a joke in Louisville basketball circles. I will say the staff does seem to actually still be recruiting, and like, not to say recruiting is ongoing, but it kind of is. Just last weekend, even before the Karter Knox visit, Tay Kinney, who's one of the most promising prospects in Kentucky in the 2026 class, was playing in Northern Kentucky. He's from Newport High School, made the Sweet 16 last year as a freshman. He specifically pointed to Josh Jameson as his, relationship connector guy at Louisville, the coach that he's talking to the most. I mentioned Nolan Smith watching not only Tyron Stokes, the 2026 standout who's from Louisville, but also AJ Debansa, the generational 25 prospect. Nolan Smith has been seen recruiting in other places as well. So they're out there, they're getting their faces, they're clearly forming relationships with kids, but it does feel like when you think even about 25, 26, you got to get to 2024 first. And that's the kind of the cloud that's hanging over it. And I try to, touch on this in my piece as well. If you dismiss Kenny Payne as the head coach at any point, it's not like you're losing this kind of generational recruiting haul. This isn't like Rutgers firing Steve Peichel this year before they have 2 top 3 players coming in 24. You almost have nothing in the cupboard right now. So taking Kenny Payne away doesn't eliminate anything for next year. If anything, it's almost like one of those, those like fires that they set to like kill off all the dead trees, and it's like a natural burn. That's kind of the vibe I've been thinking about, or the comparison I've been thinking about in my head with this. You're not actually losing any kind of a forest or anything. You're just almost setting the slate clean, letting a coach come in and actually completely mold this program from both the recruiting and transfer portal standpoint. Now, what quality of coach they could get to do that is a different question. But that's to say that firing Kenny Payne isn't going to nuke some generational recruiting class or even the promise of one.
Which I think that's what they're trying to sell by, getting the visit and getting him on campus at this point in time, is that they're trying to sell that Karter Knox is the general piece you can't afford to lose. And we're telling you that Karter Knox is a great player. He's a 5-star. He's a legit top 15 recruit. We saw him, you saw him twice at OTE last week. I saw him once on Thursday night, and he looked really damn good. He was really impressive. 3-level scorer, can use a little bit of work on the defensive end, but what 17, 18-year-old couldn't, but has all the pieces athletically. Great looking shot. John, I think he's going to be a really good player, probably at Kentucky one way or another, but he's not the type of guy that you're going to give Kenny Payne a 3rd year just because of him.
Right. Nor is he a player that could come in and almost all on his own carry it to an NCAA.
It's almost like, when Tom Crean, and I love Tom Crean. I do.
That is known.
But yes. I mean, that's a brand. There's a Tom Crean bobblehead behind me somewhere. I don't know if it actually makes it in with the, because we cut the frames a little bit here, but there is one, I promise. But the year he had Anthony Edwards, and there were all those expectations. He even had Severe Wheeler, who's still in college and has led the SEC in assists at 2 different schools, one of them being Kentucky, and is having a pretty good season for Washington right now.
I mean, think of any player who goes on to be the number 1 overall pick. Cade Cunningham at Oklahoma State couldn't lift them to anything.
I mean, they were a 4 seed that year. That's completely different than Anthony Edwards being under 500 or Ben Simmons being in the NIT or Markelle Fultz winning eight games. Cade Cunningham's a very, very different conversation. That they were legitimately a 4 seed in that tournament.
Well, I will say, but here's the thing: Karter Knox isn't close to one of those players. Right. He's not looked as anything like the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft come 2025. That's not what Karter Knox is going to be, at least right now. A player who you mentioned has strong offensive game, needs to really alter his shot diet, really needs to get to more efficient spots. You mentioned the defensive effort. That's something they're trying a lot with him at Overtime Elite. They're really focusing on him. I believe the comparison as head coach gave me was Ron Artest on defense and Paul Pierce on offense. But a guy who, again, can get to the mid-range, make his jumper, can become automatic, but he's not, a program savior, I don't think, by any stretch. So even if, that we're not even talking about even that kind of a player that Kenny Payne could potentially potentially land. So these are just all arguments kind of working in the favor of, you're not risking anything to the program's future by firing him as head coach. In fact, you may even be doing the opposite by maintaining him.
Yep.